Well, our big focus, hundreds of Israeli troops launched raids in several areas of the occupied West Bank on Wednesday, carrying out mass arrests, engaging in gun battles and killing at least 10 Palestinians. This is according to the Palestine Red Crescent Society. The Israel Defense Forces said counter-terrorism operations began overnight, focused on the northern West Bank areas of Jenin, Tulkarm and the Al-Farah refugee camp. It said that the operation was carried out in coordination with Israeli border police forces and the Internal Security Service, and it's in the first phases. But eyewitnesses described drones scanning the skies, bulldozers ramming through terrain, and armored personnel carriers on the streets as the IDF surrounded hospitals and set up checkpoints and went house to house actually making arrests. I must inform our viewers, as far as the context is concerned, well, Israel has built scores of settlements across the West Bank, which are home to over 5 lakh Jewish settlers, and they have Israeli citizenship, while the 3 million Palestinians in the West Bank live under Israeli military rule, with the Palestinian Authority exercising limited control over population centers. Well, to understand the larger ramifications, we have with us West Asia strategist Dr. Wael Awad. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us as always. Now, Israel has launched this massive deadly assault on the West Bank. We're hearing it's the largest assault there in 20 years. So why and why now?
Thank you, Parmeshwar. Actually, as you have been stating, the actual focus now has shifted from Gaza to West Bank and East Jerusalem, the occupied territories under the Israeli army, because most of the Palestinians there have been subjugated to all kinds of atrocities, detentions, and the selective killing and by the attack by the drones of the besieged camps, Palestinian camps under the Israeli occupation. So I think now, because of the increasing tension in that region and where the resistance forces, the Israeli occupation has increased, an attack on the Israeli troops have also been increasing because of the provocative act by the settlers who have been attacking regularly and systematically the Palestinian homes and confiscating their cattle and also destroying their homes and expelling them in front of the world. I think this is the time where the Palestinians thought, who has stayed away from the war on Gaza and avoided an escalation with the Israeli troops, now they have no other option but to go and fight against Israel.
In fact, Israel's foreign minister said the goal was to, quote, dismantle Islamic Iranian terror infrastructures established there. Hamas, meanwhile, has called for followers to, quote, escalate all forms of resistance and confront the occupation and its settlers everywhere in their occupied land. So how bad are things as we speak? And do you think Israel's continued fight on multiple fronts is likely to continue?
I don't think it's a fight. It's a matter of annihilation of the whole Palestine. That is the main aim. And I think the whole world is focusing what's going on in Gaza war. But the fact of the matter is, if you remember, Parmeshwar, ever since the starting of the war on Gaza, there are more than 10,000 Palestinians in West Bank has been taken into prison by the Israelis. Yes. There are more than 300 people have been killed. More than 5,000 people have been injured. So the war on the Palestinian under occupation have not stopped. If you mentioned in your talk that there are 500,000 settlers. Where did these settlers come? In illegal settlers have been making the settlement inside the Palestinian occupied territory. So therefore, if you are only your objective is to occupy and expand the settlers into the occupied territories, then that is the only way of resisting the terrorist, the activity of the Israeli settlers. So that is what is their objective, is absolutely to expel the rest of the Palestinians from the East Jerusalem and also from West Bank. And also you notice that a couple of days ago, a minister in the Israeli government saying that they are going to build a temple within the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is, what does it mean that? That means they are making it more into a religious war against the Islamic world by destroying Al-Aqsa Mosque and also by building what is called the Israeli Solomon Temple. So that is the whole crux of the problem, because the continuation of this war will serve only Prime Minister Netanyahu in this war, and that is why expanding and shifting the focus into this region will only help him to stay more in power.
Absolutely. That is actually something that many analysts have also argued. In fact, some argue and believe that this attack in the West Bank has been spurred on, though, by right-wing politicians like Israel's Security Minister and Finance Minister, who have actually increasing power and increasing influence in Israeli society. Your thoughts, sir?
Yes, that is the whole objective of the right-wing government. I mean, this is the most extreme right-wing coalition government in the history of Israel. So therefore, I see more of destruction in this part of the world. Imagine there is a 1 square kilometers, what is Jenin, is the Palestinian camp, is besieged by by the sky, by the land, and continuation of the bombardment by the Israeli drones and attacking even the hospital. So what does it mean? You are provoking the Palestinian to go and revolt against occupation. And that is where we are seeing even the President Abbas cut short his visit to Saudi Arabia. He came back. Then you have also Jordan is coming very strongly against Israelis' action inside the West Bank, and the rest of the world is simply watching that Netanyahu is swimming in the blood of the Palestinian in Gaza.
Well, Dr. Awad, thank you so much, as always, for joining us with your thoughts on the world 24/7. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates. We also have with us Mohammad Ghazali at the moment for a live update. Ghazali, major Israeli raids across the West Bank. What details can you disclose at the moment?
We are also picking up that perhaps a proposed temporary ceasefire for the availability of polio medicines, or say the vaccination in Gaza, has been agreed upon, though Israel or the Hamas spokespersons have not confirmed it, but Western media is reporting about it, that due to the outbreak of polio in Gaza, perhaps for some days there will be ceasefire. And what experts are believing, that since that ceasefire will be implemented, or a temporary truce for a couple of days for the vaccination will be sort of done there in Gaza, that is why Israel has intensified its attack in West Bank. Israel claims that perhaps West Bank also had operatives of Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad who were planning to carry out attacks on Israel, and hence this preemptive operation to neutralize 10 people. But what the local media is reporting there, that out of the 10 people who have been killed, most of them are civilians, while Israel claims otherwise, that these civilians were also in combatant operations or were involved in militant activities. So these claims and counterclaims continue from the region, while Israel still is now attacking in West Bank. And mind you, West Bank is not governed by Hamas, but it is governed by Palestinian Authority led by Mahmoud Abbas, who has good relations with Israeli government there. But as of now, it appears that the situation is still not very calm. There is situation is tense in West Bank as well as in Gaza.
Well, here's hoping things sincerely simmer. Thank you so much, Mohammad Ghazali, as always, for joining us with the latest update coming in. With that, let's turn our attention now to the United States, where authorities have confirmed that the individual who attempted to assassinate former President Donald Trump acted alone, with no evidence suggesting foreign involvement. However, during a press briefing, the FBI officials revealed that the motive behind this attack remains unclear. They described the 20-year-old suspect, Thomas Crooks, as having a mixture of ideologies. In fact, the FBI also shared details about Crooks' search history and released photos of the weapon and improvised explosive devices discovered in his vehicle. The attack, as you know, occurred on the 13th of July at a rally in Pennsylvania, where Crooks managed to graze the former president's ear, resulting in 1 death and serious injuries to 2 others. I must inform you also that the head of the FBI's Pittsburgh office has disclosed that Thomas Crooks had been searching online for Trump campaign events as far back as September 2023. With that, let's turn our attention now to France. Well, French authorities have indicted Telegram CEO Pavel Durov on 6 charges related to illicit activities on his messaging app. Durov was released from custody after posting a €5 million bail, but he is currently under strict conditions, including a ban on leaving France and mandatory check-ins at a police station twice a week. But the charges against him include complicity in managing an online platform to facilitate illegal transactions by organized groups, as well as a failure to cooperate with law enforcement. This information actually comes from a press release issued by the Paris prosecutor's office. Meanwhile, US Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz took their campaign to Georgia. The state, which actually Democrats narrowly secured in 2020, could be pivotal in this year's election, but their visit focused on energizing young voters. They hit the road in southern Georgia, focusing their efforts on areas with significant black populations. The campaign has recently expanded its presence in this region, adding staff and also opening new field offices. But Liberty County, with a population of approximately 65,000 and around 40% black, played a key role in the 2020 election, having cast a strong majority of votes for Joe Biden. We have a reaction of Kamala Harris. Listen in.
The country is counting on you, all of you. You are leaders. By the very fact that you all are here in this room, doing what you do at this incredible school, doing it as one big team, understanding all of the different parts that fit together to create a team. You are doing some of the best work any leader can do. And we're so proud of you, and we're counting on you. Your generation, all that you guys stand for, everything you have at stake, is what is going to propel our country into the next era of what we can do and what we can be.
Meanwhile, senior officials from the United States and China have been having some serious talks about stabilizing their relationship. They're working on setting up a call between President Biden and China's top leader Xi Jinping, and also planning discussions between their military teams. The White House dropped a statement saying we can expect a leader-level call within the next few weeks. And the Biden administration has sought to smooth over tensions with China while continuing to turn up the pressure on China by curbing its access to the US economy as well as technology. But the meetings, meanwhile, between Jake Sullivan and Wang Yi following talks between Mr. Biden and Mr. Xi last November in California are also aimed at showing that the rival powers can manage their differences. Well, in other news, the Dalai Lama has returned to his home in Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh after undergoing a knee replacement surgery in New York in June. The Tibetan spiritual leader was accorded a warm welcome by the local people at the Kangra airport, as you can see on your screens at the moment. The Dalai Lama, we're told, was recovering well from the surgery and was expected to continue improving over the next 6 to 12 months. This is what the doctor monitoring him has said. His surgical incision had completely healed without any complications. In news now from the neighborhood, the interim government of Bangladesh, led by Professor Muhammad Yunus, has lifted the ban on the country's main Islamic party, the Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami, and its student wing, Islami Chhatra Shibir. The announcement came in a notification from the Interior Ministry of the government, which was preceded by a press conference by the Emir of the Jamaat-e-Islami, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, who praised the freedom fighters who freed Bangladesh from the rule by Pakistan in 1971. Former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's Awam League government had actually imposed a ban on them on the 1st of August under the country's anti-terrorism law, alleging that they stoked deadly violence during the student-led protests, which eventually resulted in the fall of the Hasina regime.
The interim government of Bangladesh, led by Muhammad Yunus, has lifted the ban on Jamaat-e-Islami. The Ministry of Home Affairs repealed the ban, paving the way for the party to resume its activities, though it still needs to register with the Election Commission to contest in polls.
আইন অনুযায়ী 19 নম্বর ধারার রিকোয়ারমেন্ট মোতাবেক এই রিভিউ প্যানেল গঠন করা হয়। এই রিভিউ প্যানেলে বিষয়টি পুঙ্খানুপুঙ্খভাবে আলোচনা হয় এবং তারাও অতীতের এই অভিযোগের সমর্থনে কোনো তথ্য প্রমাণ খুঁজে পাননি। এরই প্রেক্ষিতে এই বিষয়টি মাননীয় স্বরাষ্ট্র উপদেষ্টার কাছে উপস্থাপন করা হয়। ওনার সই স্বাক্ষরের পরে মাননীয় প্রধান উপদেষ্টা তার সই স্বাক্ষরের পরে মাননীয় আইন উপদেষ্টার সকল প্রক্রিয়া সম্পন্ন হয়ে এই বিষয়টি সিদ্ধান্ত গৃহীত হয় যে অতীতে যে প্রজ্ঞাপনটি জারি করা হয়েছিল এই প্রজ্ঞাপনটিকে বাতিল ঘোষণা করা হয়।
Former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina had banned the party on August 1st, just 4 days before she was removed from power after weeks of student-led protests and fleeing to India by helicopter. But why was his party banned by the former Prime Minister? Jamaat-e-Islami has a controversial history dating back to Bangladesh's liberation war in 1971. The organization's member formed auxiliary forces like Razakars, Al-Badr, Al-Shams, and the Peace Committee, which were implicated in atrocities against Bengali freedom fighters and members of the Hindu community. Jamaat-e-Islami's influence is not confined to Bangladesh. In Pakistan, it remains a major political force despite its involvement in militant activities. The order to lift the ban on Jamaat-e-Islami comes a day after the Bangladesh government released another radical leader, Jashimuddin Rahmani, chief of the Islamist outfit Ansarullah Bangla Team, or ABT. Rahmani is convicted for abetting the murder of blogger, activist, and a vocal supporter of the terror outfit Al-Qaeda and its offshoot Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent. Suspected members of this outfit have been arrested by Indian security agencies in the northeast region. Unrest in Bangladesh continues even 3 weeks after Sheikh Hasina left from power. These developments are a major security concern for India, which is already trying to grow its ties with the new regime in the neighborhood. With Mohammad Ghazali, Samia Afsar for NDTV World.
Well, for further clarity on what's happening in the neighborhood, we have with us Ayanjeet Sen, who's an expert on Bangladesh affairs. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, the lifting of the ban essentially means the organization can now participate in the political process of Bangladesh and also participate in the political dialogue for holding the next general election in the country, right?
Yes, the lifting of the ban marks a pivotal moment in Bangladesh's political environment, in a way potentially reshaping the alliances and the voter dynamics ahead of future elections whenever it takes place, because the current interim government tenure is not sure, and it may go up to a few years or a year. It all depends on Muhammad Yunus, who's heading it. So as and when this happens, when they go for the elections, at that point of time, I think Jamaat-e-Islami would definitely play a pivotal role out there. And this, in a way, they can now initiate themselves to engage in a political dialogue. And also because the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, earlier was there with them, and till now they still have a friendly relation between the two. So from that perspective, they are coming back to politics. But the most important part here is that the head of Jamaat-e-Islami, Professor Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, he said that Jamaat supports close ties between India and Bangladesh, which is a complete volte-face compared to what they used to always say earlier. And at the same time, it also has advocated for balanced relations with the other global players like US and China, also with Pakistan. But it's mainly from that perspective that, also from a religious side as well, they have said that Bangladesh is made up of Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, and Christians. And in a way, he's kind of playing a very safe game, saying that we all constitute Bangladesh. From that perspective, he has told the press as well. And this, in a way, clearly indicates that as and when elections take place in Bangladesh, they are going to be a major force, undoubtedly.
And undoubtedly, the decision actually represents a significant change from the decision that was taken by the erstwhile Awami League government earlier this month, just days before its ouster. But thank you so much, Mr. Sen, for joining us with those quick comments. Well, news and updates continue in a moment, right after this very short break. Stay tuned. And news from the UK now, where leaders actually from Britain and Germany have announced plans to create a major new treaty that will tackle everything from defense to trade. This move is part of a broader effort to reset Britain's relationship with the European Union. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's visit to Germany and France is all about mending fences and moving past the rocky relations of the previous Conservative government of Rishi Sunak. Since taking office last month, The British Prime Minister has made strengthening these ties a key part of his strategy to drive Britain's economic growth. In fact, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer billed the new cooperation treaty as a once-in-a-generation chance to deliver for working people in Britain and in Germany.
As today shows, Britain can advance its interests much more effectively when we stand with our friends and partners. This treaty is part of a wider reset, grounded in a new spirit of cooperation, with our shared understanding that this will be developed at pace and that we hope to have agreed it by the end of the year. A Britain reconnected, resetting our relationship, rediscovering our common interests, delivering for working people.
Meanwhile, in Australia's Victoria, Treasurer Tim Pallas has slammed the federal government's plan to cap international university students, calling it a fundamentally destructive decision that could seriously impact the state's finances. His comments underline the challenges Labour faces in pushing this proposal through federal parliament, especially with opposition from the Greens and dissent within its own ranks. Now, as we've covered over this week, Australia's Education Minister Jason Clare revealed a plan to limit new international student enrolments to 270,000 next year. While some universities will be allowed to increase their international student numbers, others will have to cut back. But Greens leader Adam Bandt has criticised the government's new policy, accusing them of dressing up a migration issue as an education policy. In fact, he argued that the plan fails to address the needs of universities that have become dependent on international student fees, pointing to a broader issue of inadequate government funding in Australia. Well, thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.